Hey guys, it's Karina with Karina Loves to Plan. Welcome back to my channel. So here I am back for my July progress report, as well as really an update on what I thought of all of my inks for my July currently inked. Let's get started. So one of the things that I like to do is keep track of all of the pens purchased as well as all of the inks purchased. So let's go ahead with the pens first. And if you can tell by how many unboxings I did this month, there were quite a few. So the first pen, actually, there were, you know what, I'm gonna use a different color pen for this one. Let's use my Esterbrook Estie in Rainforest. So there were 2 pens purchased this month. And that was actually they were both from one from Just Turnings, and that was my custom Swirly Joyful Kismet. And then the other one was I did purchase the Narwhal Voyager Tromso, or Vacation, I think it's Vacation Tromso, but I have not yet received that. That one is still somewhere in Illinois and it's been there for like 9 or 10 days. So anyway, there is one pen that was gifted to me, but that has not yet arrived. That should be arriving actually on July 31st. And then pens received, I'm going to include that in the pens received. So for me, the number of pens purchased versus the number received are different because I could make a purchase for a custom months in advance and not get it till a few months later. So 5 pens received. This is if I actually do get the pen gifted to me arriving on Monday, and you know, it should. No reason why it shouldn't. So from Zodiac Pen Co., I got the Abalone and the Primary Manipulation. And then from Just Turnings, I got the Pastel Primary Manipulation, which I'm so happy about, and my custom. And I'm not gonna write the other pen. Actually, I should write. And can I turn this around? And the Bless Kit. I'm gonna leave that open for now. And then for pens sold, I sold 2 pens this month. One was the Little Pen Designs Pastel Primary Manipulation, and my Pilot Custom 743. So those were the ones sold. So did I get everything in this column? Perfect. So next we'll look at inks. And one of the reasons that I do this, it keeps me accountable, but also it makes sure that I'm not buying to the point where I've got so much and I'm not actually using it. So did I purchase any ink bottles this month? No, I did not. So 0 bottles purchased. Because if I look back at, the only ink bottle that was purchased was back in June. So 0 bottles purchased this month. Yay. And then 2 ink bottles were actually gifted to me from Kara. 2 inks bottles. Oh my gosh. Gifted, and that was Herbon Colle des Tropiques, and then the other one was Colorverse Pillars of Creation. Both very different inks, and if you haven't seen that video, I'll link it up here for you. And then I purchased 10 ink samples from PenChalet, but they haven't arrived yet. So those should be arriving hopefully next week. But I'm just gonna write from PenChalet. And then 4 ink samples were gifted to me. And what were they? Colorburst Mystic Mountain, which is very pretty. And then I believe it was Warringal Alice. And then, where is it? Yeah, Warringal Alice, Diamine Celadon Cat, which I love that one. Actually, I realized that these are all blue. Celadon Cat, and then Herbin Bouquet d'Antan, which is not blue. And then there were 7 ink samples that I used up or gave away. And I won't write those all down here because I actually have them all on my spreadsheet. So what is the total? Where am I currently sitting at the end of July? The only thing with this total is that, am I counting everything that has yet to be received? So maybe not. So let's go with pens. What am I currently at? So pens, I am currently at 30 pens with, I would say 2 on the way. Well, technically I haven't, yeah, 2 on the way because I have no idea when I'm getting that novel. So the 2 on the way, one is that Narwhal, and the other one is a custom Urushi Rodin, which is, I don't know when I'm getting that, but that one has already been purchased. So anyway, so that brings my total up from, let's see, last month. Yeah, so last month I had 28 with 4 on the way, so I'm up a little bit. And then ink bottles, I'm looking at my spreadsheet. Ink bottles, I am at 39 bottles, which technically, I'm going up here, yeah, go up by 2 because of the 2 that were gifted. And then ink samples, so I haven't listed the ones that I haven't received yet. So I have currently, oops, ink samples, I currently have 49 samples, which is from last month, down 2 from last month, but I do have 10 on the way. Okay. I really like being able to look at this because I can go back and say, what was my spending like? Yeah. All right. Does anybody else do their progress report like this? If you do, please let me know down in the comments below. So then let's go to my currently inked for July. The first one on my currently inked list is the Pilot E95S, and this has a 14 karat fine nib. And the ink that I used was Warringal Don Quixote, and I really like the brown, purpley, dusty pink color of that. The flow in this, actually, you know what? No, the ink itself, I would grade a 9 because I really liked the color of the ink. And then the flow in this particular pen, I would give it actually about like an 8 because it had a good flow, but I think because it is a fine nib, it wasn't as wet as I'd like it. Comfort level on this pen, I would actually give a 7 because the step here actually kind of became a little uncomfortable for me. So I had to really adjust where I was holding. So this pen, this is a beautiful pen. And the nib is very smooth. But the ink, whoops, see? The ink and pen combination felt a little dry. and the step on the pen is uncomfortable. It's good for about a page of writing. And then I'll show you quickly here, you know, once you cap the pen, it's actually a very beautiful pen. Then I'll show you a writing sample here quickly of when I was transcribing for Anne of Green Gables. You know, I love the color and it is beautiful, but the ink flow felt a little dry for me. And then in terms of comfort level, I couldn't do more than a page writing with this pen. The next pen on this list is actually my Esterbrook Estie in Petrified Forest. And this one has a Jowo number 6 extra fine nib. And this is actually the pen that I used in my 5-year journal for the month of July. So in my 5-year journal, I actually use one pen, one ink combination for the whole month. So the ink I have in here is Teranishi Opera Rose, and I give the ink a 10. I love this ink so much. Like, it's a more coral shade, more orangey shade of the Dusty Rose or Dusty Pink. And the flow with an extra fine nib, also very, very good. And comfort level, you guys know I love my Esterbrook Esties. So, oh, now it's not straight. This was probably my favorite pen and ink combo. The extra fine nib is juicy, smooth, yet crisp. So still like perfect width of the line. Flow is above average wetness, which is just the way I like it, especially in an extra fine nib. And I could write pages and pages with this pen. And I wanted to while transcribing Anne of Green Gables. And you'll see here the beautiful crispness of this extra fine nib, but it works so well with how wet this ink is. And you can really see a little bit of shading and the color variation with the shading, but I absolutely love this while transcribing. My favorite combo for sure. The next pen is my Zodiac Penco in the Virgo model in the Water Lily Koi by Jonathan Brooks. It is a mouthful to say, but you can say all of that while you're looking at the beautiful swirls of this pen. Like, I can't get over that. And then the nib is a fine nib that was custom ground into a cursive smooth italic by Jack Hernandez. So the ink I have in here is Herbin Ombre de Burmanie. And I would probably give the ink itself probably an 8. It's not an ink that I normally go for. Flow would definitely be a 10. Juicy, wet, definitely. And then I'd probably give the comfort level of this a 10 as well. I love the shape of this pen and it fits very, very nicely in my hand. So the ink shades beautifully. Oh gosh, my template underneath is shifting and it's not straight. Beautifully. The flow is juicy and the nib is smooth and perfectly, I guess, crisp line. As you can see, going straight across, and then you got that line and variation. Love the shape of this pen. Absolutely love it. And then you can see here, as I've written in my Tomoe River paper notebook transcribing for Anne of Green Gables. I love this ink because of the shading. I gave it an 8 because it's not a color that I normally go for, but it's one that I highly recommend if you're looking for something like yellow orangey. But the shading is beautiful. The flow, I loved the way the ink flowed out of this pen. And then you can see the line variation with the cursive smooth italic nib. Beautiful, beautiful. The next pen is another Esterbrook Estie, this time in Rainforest. This is one I purchased off of Reddit. And this one, I traded the broad nib that it came with for a fine nib. And this is inked up with Diamine Meadow. I give the ink, I actually give the ink probably a 10. The flow a 10, and then the comfort level a 10. It's the same grading as the Esterbrook Estie Petrified Forest, but I actually preferred the Taranishi Opera Rose, but I also preferred it because of this is an extra fine nib, and I wrote fine, but it's an extra fine nib. So beautiful, beautifully behaved ink. Great flow, gorgeous color. Has lovely shading. The fine nib on this pen is smooth. And I've said that all the time. Oh, there goes Lucy. Smooth and juicy. And the Estie I could write with forever. Beautiful. And then you can see here in my writing sample in my Tomoe River notebook, you can just see how even in a fine nib, the difference between a fine nib and an extra fine nib, but the ink as well makes a huge difference. The Diamine Meadow is a really well-behaved ink and it flows really well. So even in a fine nib, you get beautiful shading. Really, really great combination. The next pen in my July currently inked was my Pelikan M605 in the Black Tortoise. And I know this was recently featured on one of the pens I would not repurchase. And I say that I wouldn't repurchase, and I had a lot of people say that, are you selling it? There is a range, I guess, of the ones that I would not repurchase to the ones that I would not, or that I would resell right now. And this is one that I would not sell right now. I love it and I would use it, but it's on that scale of if I did lose it, would I try and buy it again? Probably not. But anyway, let's get to the ink. So the ink in here is Colorverse Alpha CMA, and this is a drier ink. So I decided to put it in this pen, because I know this pen, especially the extra fine nibs in the Pelikan, are very wet and very juicy. So the ink, I'm giving the ink a 9 because I really like this shade of blue. The flow, I give a 9, and then the comfort level of this one, I probably give about an 8. So the blue, gosh, I cannot spell, is a gorgeous shader. Is that a word? And combined with the very juicy EF nib, perfect flow. This pen is a good size for maybe 2 pages worth of writing. And you can see here in this writing sample how beautifully this ink shades with this nib. You don't, I wouldn't combine this with any other extra fine nib because I would feel like it was too dry. It would be one that I would probably add the Van Ness White Lightning to, but combined with the Pelikan M605, it is the perfect flow. I didn't have any issues with flow in this one. As you can see here, it wrote beautifully. So these two together, I would only really put this ink in this pen because of how wet this writes. This next pen is another one that also made my would not repurchase list. It is the Platinum 3776 in the Laurel Green, and this has a 14 karat fine nib. And one of the reasons why I would not repurchase this is because the fine nib, I've tried to love it, and I think it's just too fine for me. So the ink that is in here is Diamine Earl Grey, and the ink itself, I would probably grade an 8. It's a really pretty gray ink. In terms of the flow, I would probably give the flow an 8 because it wasn't consistent for me, and I prefer a juicier type of nib. The comfort level, I'd probably put an 8 as well, because as you can see, it's almost gonna be too small for my hand, and I don't post my pens. I mean, posted, yeah, I could make it work, but I don't post my pens. I don't like to post my pens. So in terms of this pen, the ink is lovely and flows well, but sometimes have issues being almost too fine and too dry. For me personally, this is not a general statement on this pen. This is just a statement for me personally. And the 3776 is bordering on too small. If I did repurchase this pen, I would probably try it in a medium nib. And I think it really depends on the ink itself. If I had a really wet ink in this, I would probably like it better. So I think in the future, if I'm going to continue using this, it'll have to be with really wet inks. And you can see here how fine in this writing sample, how fine the writing is with the Diamine Earl Grey, and the fine nib in the Platinum is very fine. This 14 karat nib is very stiff, so it's not for everybody. Not everybody likes the stiffness of this nib. It's not always for me. It depends on the situation, but you can see here in the writing sample, it's beautiful, but it might be too fine for me. And the last pen is my Pilot Vanishing Point in the Gunmetal Rhodium, and it has a 18 karat fine nib. I'm really tempted to try an extra fine nib in the Pilot Vanishing Point. Maybe when I'm at the San Francisco Pen Show, I'll try one, but really want to try the crisp extra fine line of the 18 karat, but also have the bounciness of this. Like, out of all of the gold nibs that I have, I think my favorite is the 18 karat on the Pilot Vanishing Point because of how bouncy it is, but you still get that line. So then the ink that is in here is Ferris Wheel Press Grape Ice Pop, and I'm gonna grade the ink itself probably an 8. It's not an ink that I would normally go for in terms of that shade, but also in the writing sample, you can see it's quite dark, so you can't really see the beautiful shades of purple in here. The flow is a 10. And then the comfort level, I give the Vanishing Point probably an 8 in terms of comfort level, which means I probably could have graded that lower. So the color of the ink is hard to see. It's very dark versus the swatch. And the ink with this nib feels like a fire hose. And I normally experience dry inks with Ferris Wheel Press, but this one is so wet. And the comfort, I can write about 2 pages with this comfortably. but I definitely want to try an extra fine nib. Now in the writing sample in my Tomoe River paper, you can see that it does show up a little bit more purple, but because there's so much wetness and there's so much flow, it seems very, very dark at first, but it does show up a little bit better on this paper. It is a beautiful purple, but I think just a little bit too dark for me. But otherwise, really, really great combination, these two. So that is the progress report for the month of July, and I didn't mean to, but I had a little bit of a rainbow going on in there. So what were your favorites, or what were your thoughts on my July currently inked? You can tell my all-out favorite is the Esterbrook Estie in the Petrified Forest with Terranaceae Opera Rose. That one was kind of, you know, there's no spoilers in that one. That one was definitely going to be the favorite. And then I think my second favorite out of all of them, I loved writing with the Zodiac Penco with that fine cursive smooth italic. It was just lovely, absolutely lovely. My least favorite out of all of them, if we're going by just the scores, and I don't normally just go, well, actually, if we are going by the score, my least favorite was the Platinum 3776 Laurel Green. I do really want to try a medium platinum 14 karat nib, and maybe I will try one at the San Francisco Pen Show. All right, but that is it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching my progress update as well as all of this. If you have any questions, please let me know down in the comments below. If you like this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up and hit subscribe. Thanks for watching and have yourselves a great day.